The summer sun rose over San Diego on July Both, Arsenlingar, painting the waters of SeaWorld's Shamu Stadium in a golden shimmer. To the visitors who would arrive later that morning, it was just another day of vacation, another chance to watch massive orcas leap, splash, and dance alongside their trusted human. But for Tamarie Tollison, a 40-year-old senior orca trainer, this was not just another day. It was the continuation of a calling she had pursued with passion, discipline, and unshakable belief in the bond between humans and killer whales. She had walked this same path hundreds of times before. The worn concrete leading toward the pools, the faint smell of salt water mixed with chlorine, the muffled hum of pumps pushing thousands of gallons through the tanks. To her colleagues, Tamarie was calm, dependable, the kind of trainer who never showed fear. And to the whales, she was more than a figure in a wetsuit. She was a familiar voice, a steady presence, a bridge between two worlds. But that morning, beneath the calm surface of the pool, danger swirled unseen. Within hours, the laughter of tourists would be replaced by screams. The bright waters of the stadium would be stained with red, and Tamarie would find herself locked in a deadly struggle, dragged beneath the surface by two orcas she thought she knew. This is the story of how trust shattered, how survival came at the edge of death, and how one woman's near-fatal encounter exposed secrets SeaWorld never wanted the world to hear. To understand what happened that day, we first need to know who Tamarie was. Born with a love for the ocean, she pursued marine biology before joining SeaWorld, where she quickly rose to senior trainer at Shamu Stadium. She wasn't just a performer in the splash zone. She studied the orcas obsessively, learning their moods, gestures, and vocal cues with the patience of a scientist and the devotion of a friend. Her closest partners were Orchid, a female orca born in captivity in Ichen Jobaid, and Splash, a massive male transferred from San Antonio. Orchid was intelligent, quick to learn, and sometimes assertive, a whale who pushed boundaries. Splash, on the other hand, was slower, unpredictable at times, but awe-inspiring in sheer size and power. Tamarie worked with them almost daily. She trusted them, and she believed they trusted her back. Trainers often joked that she spoke their language. Yet beneath the camaraderie, whispers circulated, rumors of near misses, of Orchid tugging a trainer's ponytail, of Splash failing to respond. Small warnings often brushed aside, but hints of the storm to come. On July Both, the stadium was still empty of guests. The whales glided through the water, sleek and silent. Tamarie slipped into the pool for what was supposed to be a routine training session, conditioning, reinforcement, pre-show bonding. Nothing risky, nothing extraordinary. Her colleagues watched from the deck, clipboards in hand, radios clipped to belts. The air carried a sense of routine, the quiet confidence that comes from repetition. Tamarie floated beside Orchid, smiling as the whale surfaced, mist spraying gently across her face. But beneath the water, something shifted. Orchid's movements grew tighter, less fluid. Her eyes fixed on Tamarie with an intensity only the most seasoned trainers would recognize. Splash hovered below, his bulk circling like a shadow. No alarms sounded, no one panicked. And then, everything changed. Without warning, Orchid lunged. Her jaws clamped around Tamarie's foot with terrifying force, and in an instant, the trainer was yanked downward. The water churned white, and from the deck above, gasps turned to shouts. Before Tamarie could regain control, Splash surged upward from the depths, joining the chaos. Now two whales had her, pulling, twisting, dragging her body deeper. For the first time in her career, Tamarie was no longer the trainer in command. She was prey in the grip of predators. The radios crackled, recall. Recall. Emergency cues blasted through the water, signals designed to snap whales out of aggression. Trainers slapped the surface, tossed fish, used buzzers. Nothing worked. Beneath the surface, Tamarie's world turned into a nightmare of black and gray muscle. She thrashed, but the whale's power was overwhelming. Her lungs burned, her screams dissolved into bubbles. Every second stretched into eternity. On the deck, panic spread. For seconds, an eternity when drowning. Tamarie disappeared completely. The pool that had been so calm moments earlier now felt like a trap, a watery arena of life and death. Just when hope seemed lost, a senior trainer made a last-ditch decision. They used a false recall signal, a vocal cue associated with Kasatka, the matriarch whale who wasn't even in the pool. The whales had been conditioned to obey her authority, and it worked. Orchid released first. Splash followed. Tamarie's body shot upward, limp at the surface. For a horrifying second, she didn't move, then a cough, a gasp, a ragged, desperate breath. She was alive. Cold blood spread across the water as trainers rushed in with stretchers. Her arm hung at an unnatural angle, bones piercing skin. Her foot was mangled, covered in bite marks. Purple bruises marked her torso where thousands of pounds of force had crushed her. Guests in restricted areas watched in stunned silence as Tamarie was pulled from the pool. Some later said they could never forget the sight of blood dripping onto the concrete, staining the path as she was rushed to the hospital. She had survived, but the ordeal was far from over. At the hospital, surgeons fought to repair her shattered arm and save her foot. But while Tamarie lay sedated, another battle unfolded inside SeaWorld's corporate offices. The question wasn't just what happened. It was, what do we tell the world? No, executives feared public backlash. So the official story was carefully crafted. Tamarie had been injured during a routine training session. No mention of aggression. No mention of being dragged underwater, and certainly no mention of the recall trick that saved her life. Internally, trainers knew the truth. They whispered about Orchid's history of testing boundaries, about Splash's unpredictable streak. Safety concerns had been raised before. Memos had flagged these whales as high risk for water work. But the shows had to go on, and Tamarie had paid the price. Weeks turned into months. Tamarie endured surgeries, pins in her arm, endless physical therapy. She relearned how to walk without pain, how to move her arm again. But the psychological scars ran deeper. Note the water, once her sanctuary, now carried memories of terror. The whales she had called family had nearly killed her. She never returned to in-water training again. Publicly, she stayed silent. No interviews, no memoir, no media spotlight. Her absence from the shows spoke louder than words ever could. To her colleagues, her survival was both inspiring and haunting. As one trainer put it, quote, "That could have been any of us." For years, SeaWorld kept the attack hidden from public knowledge. Orchid continued performing as if nothing had happened. Splash remained in shows and, it wasn't until Arsène Lupin, when a documentary Blackfish shook the world, that Tamarie's story resurfaced. Filmmakers pieced together records, logs, and testimony to reveal what SeaWorld had buried. Tamarie's silence became part of a louder truth, that trainers had been placed in danger, that orcas were unpredictable in captivity, and that corporate image mattered more than human lives. Yun in Arsène Lupin, tragedy struck again. Trainer Dawn Brancho was killed by the orca Tillicum at SeaWorld Orlando in front of a live audience. This time the world could not be kept in the dark. The aftermath forced sweeping changes, trainers banned from swimming with orcas, safety protocols rewritten, barriers raised. SeaWorld would never be the same. And though Tamarie Tollison never spoke publicly, her near-death encounter became part of that legacy. Her name echoed through internal reports, safety meetings, and whispered warnings. Her survival was both a symbol and a question. How many close calls had there been before her? And how many more were still hidden beneath the surface? Today, Tamarie lives outside the spotlight. The shows go on. Orchid and the others perform for cheering crowds. But the truth lingers beneath the surface. A reminder that behind the smiling trainers and leaping whales lies a history of blood, risk and silence. Her story, though buried for years, still matters because it exposes the cost of captivity, not just for the whales, but for the humans who dedicate their lives to them. Draple, the pool that turned red on that July morning, was not just a stage. It was a battlefield between illusion and reality. And Tamarie's survival forced the world to ask, is the price of entertainment worth the risk of another life?